All right, welcome everyone to the Tech Woke Podcast. It's your host Osasu Osaji. Typically, this would be the podcast that Chris would be hosting, but we're going to kind of reverse the roles, and I will be hosting and interviewing Chris on his own platform. He has a lot to share when it comes to RMF, the status of tech, the future of tech, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. And basically, we're just going to dive into it and we're just going to talk about everything tech, RMF, and cybersecurity. So just make sure that y'all stay tuned, take some notes, and I'm ready to jump into this interview. You ready, Chris?
Hey, I'm ready. Let's get it.
All right. Dope, man. So, for your audience, right? What exactly is RMF? What is risk management framework? Do you mind kind of just breaking that down and sharing that with the audience?
Yeah, no problem. Oh, and again, bro, it's an honor for you to interview me, to kind of get me on this platform. I know with the audience, a lot of people don't know who I am. And sometimes I'm always interviewing somebody, but it's appreciated to get a little update every year. So to the audience, everybody knows me as Chris Akpala, Tech Woke, RMF Academy. So a lot of times, a lot of people don't know what risk management is.
Yeah.
So just to break it down, just to kind of in simpler terms, risk management framework is a framework particularly for federal government systems. Okay. So to sum it up, an organization called FISMA mandated that government agencies have to make sure that their systems are in compliant, right? So
Mhm.
once FISMA was created, the government created something kind of like something called NIST. NIST is the framework that helps with making sure that you have certain things in place, which is implementation of controls. Make sure you're documenting your system. Make sure you're having an ATO, auditing, things like that. So NIST is the framework that follows a framework called risk management, which is it helps maintain what FISMA requires. In most federal agencies, and a lot like the DoD, stuff like that, they make sure that this is being maintained. So that's the whole purpose of what I do, and it's particularly in the federal government space. In the private sector space, they call it more of like GRC, government risk and compliance. In a way, it's a little bit different because in the federal system, you follow the risk management framework. Depending on what you're working in the private sector, you're either following different frameworks like PCI DSS, HIPAA, and other frameworks. So, and just to sum it up, that's kind of what risk management framework is in a nutshell.
That's really good, man. And it's kind of like between the federal sector and then the private space, it's like two sides of the same coin, right? And
Yeah.
I know with the private sector, the way in which they do compliance and risk management, in particular to like GRC, is a lot different than the federal space. But I want to ask you, like, why is it so important when it comes to the federal space, when it comes to cybersecurity in the government?
Yeah, as you know, working in the federal space can be very important. You're working with different government organizations that have certain information that's classified. Uh, for example, some systems can affect a whole enterprise and affect a whole warfighter. So if you're not properly securing these systems and making sure that they're being audited, checked, validated, and the controls are implemented, then it can affect people that's out in the field, like people that's actually in war. There's people that actually have to get mission critical things done that can affect lives. So working in the federal space is an honor and also is a responsibility because you're making sure that these systems are in compliance because if something goes on with these federal systems, it can end up on the news. So it's very important.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. And when you think about cybersecurity, when you think about tech, living in the DMV area, it's kind of one of the tech hubs, right? It's very high demand. A lot of people come to the DMV to get their foot in the door when it comes to tech. So there's a lot of high level conversations, there's a lot of cybersecurity conversation when it comes to here. But when you look elsewhere in the nation, it may be a little different, some the same, but then you do see certain distinctions when it comes to tech. Now, we know that you moved to New Mexico, right? You're no longer in the DMV. You have traveled abroad. But
Mhm.
before leaving to go to New Mexico, you experienced a setback, and that was you losing your job. So, can you take me back to that moment? What was your immediate reaction, and how did you handle that situation personally and professionally?
Yeah, the first thing is when I was given notification that my job was no longer there, you know, it's just how you deal with it. Things happen, people get laid off. The first thing is just acceptance. You got to accept that this is the situation, this is what's going to happen, and you just want to exit, make sure things are professional, no matter what. You can be angry, upset, in any job. And this is for the audience. If you let go from a job, it's not you against the job. It's business at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiring you to do a job. Sometimes they want to make changes and they let you know, like, hey, this is no longer going to work, and they let you go. And it happens, you know. It's not something that's going to just destroy your whole life. It's not your identity. So your job is not your identity. So the first thing is I did was accept that, okay, this is going to happen. And thank the employer. They did a great job from having me on. They treated me well. They took care of me. So I have no issues with the employer. The second thing is I have to consult. First thing, I just consult with some friends, let them know, hey, this is what happened. You know, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. And the first thing, and then the next thing I did was I just went to God. Everybody on this podcast know I believe in Jesus. I believe He's Lord and Savior. So you consult God. I let God know, you know, this is what's going to happen. This is not the path for me no more. So I consulted to God on what I should do next. So I prayed about it and also talked to some people at the church, deacon, pastors, just to make sure that I'm good and understand what the word says and keep the word tight. So the next thing I started doing, the great thing about it is I built a big following on LinkedIn. Right now we're at 19,000, probably 19,500 people, almost 20,000 people. So all throughout that whole time, I was posting my achievements. I was posting projects I did. I accomplishments. I spoke at Simone B's conference. I spoke at different things, things that I did. I posted all of that. I also post a lot about risk management framework. I posted about a lot of things that's going on in the industry. And then again, throughout that time, I've helped so many people, I can't even count it. I helped hundreds of people. So the first thing I did was, okay, well, I helped all these people. I said, let me just go to LinkedIn and see if they can help me, help me. So the first thing I did was I made a post. That post got almost 1,000 impressions. No, actually almost 100,000 impressions. I think a lot of likes and comments. It had like almost 1,000 likes and comments. Everybody on LinkedIn just really poured into me. A lot of people reached out to me on LinkedIn about opportunities. I applied to every one of them if I could. I also talked to a lot of different recruiters that was trying to help me, trying to give me opportunity. For myself, I applied, and for myself, shout out to Shade, my fiance.
Shout out to today.
Shout out Shade. Shade helped me throughout that whole process. She sat online and she applied to jobs to help me out. All I had to do was come to the interview at some points. So all she wanted me to focus on the interview. She just kept applying to jobs. Sometimes throughout the day, and I would just get different interviews throughout the day. And then I noticed for myself in the DMV, I wasn't getting that many opportunities in the DMV area anymore. So for me, I started, okay, this is not working in the DMV. So I was thinking, okay, where should I go to get these opportunities? So I picked a list of places I would want to go. I picked Cali. I put Colorado. I put a lot of different places. I think Kansas City at one point. I applied to a lot of different positions. So, and even Massachusetts at one point. I was like, oh, I want to live in Massachusetts. So I noticed when I started applying to jobs outside the DMV, because it's so saturated in the DMV, there's so many people that have jobs in the DMV, and it's hard to get them because a lot of them are, you get them because you know somebody. So I was like, okay, well, let me go apply. And then next thing you know, I started getting interviews. I got different interviews in different states all over the country. And then in particular, this one LinkedIn person reached out to me, and I got to find him again just to thank him for the opportunity. He sent me an opportunity that was in a place called New Mexico. I was like, New Mexico? I don't know nothing about New Mexico. I never even heard of it. I knew it was a state, but I only know it because of John Jones Bones. Like John Jones, you know, I'm like John Jones, and I know Jackson. Was it Jackson Wink MMA? I was like, New Mexico, because the lady says in New Mexico. I was like, listen, I can't do the interview now. I'm not in New Mexico, and I ended up doing the interview anyway online. So I talked to them. I told them about what I'm trying to do. I told them my expertise on what I know about compliance and understanding. And they actually said, I would. And at first I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna just fly out to New Mexico myself. But they actually gave me an opportunity. They said, hey, we'll take care of your flight. Come out to New Mexico. See if you like it. Because I did the interview and that's what they were saying. Do you want to come out here? I said, I don't know. So I flew out New Mexico and shout out. And I'm not gonna say the name of this company, but I saw what they were. I talked to the company, talked to the people at the company, and the things that we're doing was amazing. They were building some things that I wanted to be a part of. And after having a conversation with them and thinking about it, I looked, and then also I kind of experienced the area. I saw the mountains. I saw that there's not a lot of tech representation down here for what I do. There's not a lot of, maybe somebody that's trying to get into the space that might not know about it. So I started thinking about that. I came back to the DMV. I actually got another opportunity out Colorado. So I got 2 offers. So I went to go talk to Reno, which is our deacon. And I was talking to Reno. I said, listen, man, I don't know what to do. Colorado, New Mexico. I want to go to Colorado because, to be honest with you, it's a nice place. New Mexico, I don't know nothing about. So I talked to Reno, and Reno told me, hey, what is your mission? Like, what is your mission you want to do? So when he told me what my mission was, I immediately thought of Tech Woke, RMF Academy, and I thought about the opportunities I can help with those people that don't get that many opportunities out in New Mexico. And I said, listen, whatever it takes, I'm going to accept this. I'm going to go to New Mexico. And all I'm going to say for people that experiencing things like that, remember your purpose, remember who you are, and always trust God, because the DMV is a good place to be. But throughout my hiring process and just applying to jobs and doing opportunities, there's a lot of opportunities outside the DMV. There's opportunities like New Mexico. They have a lot of tech jobs. There's a lot of opportunities out Colorado. Hey, even Kansas City, Missouri. There's places, even Phoenix, Arizona. There's opportunities, and you got to trust God. If an opportunity's not happening to you there, and then you apply to another state and you get opportunities there, don't be afraid to leave. So that's kind of what I experienced through that.
That's really good, man. So some of the things that I took away from what you said is that you stayed anchored in your faith, you sought out community, you stayed busy, and you kept your head down when it came to your business, and you didn't reject opportunities that would normally, in any other situation, would probably be unfamiliar or unappealing to you. So let's just say anybody that's in your shoes or was in your shoes, right now, they're having a hard time finding jobs in the DMV area, or even a little bit outside of the DMV, where it's probably maybe like a 2-hour drive. What would you say to them, or how would you encourage them? And also, when do you think they should start looking for jobs far outside of the DMV for employment?
Yeah, so that's a good question, though. Actually, that's a really good question. For somebody that was in my shoes, I had to move quickly. Knows this. I move very quickly. I gotta. If God telling me this, I'm gonna go do this. If the pathway is telling me this, I'm gonna do this. But somebody that's in my shoes, this is how I would break it down to them. If they're not getting opportunities, they want to apply outside. The first thing I would tell somebody to do is evaluate yourself and your resume. Look at your resume, see if it has all the most updated things. Again, and currently we got a lot of information going on in the government space. We got CMMC, we got quantum computing, we got zero trust, you got cloud compliance. Make sure that you sit down and really evaluate what you know. And then if you don't know it, try to get a better understanding of what it is, because if you don't have that knowledge, it's going to be harder for you to get a job in today's market, right? Because it's like, if you just know, okay, we know how to check controls, that's it. If you know how to do this, that's it. No, companies are looking for people that want somebody to take hold of a situation and drive the horse and have a passion for it. And that's how I got my opportunity. The next thing I would do, if you have a little bit of money, invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. When I mean invest in yourself, find somebody, and that's what I did for myself. I found somebody that's good, that can do resumes. Shout out to Leslie Mariba. He helps a lot of people I know get jobs, helps me with my resume. I found him. He gave me he helped me with my resume, updated it, made it look good, updated with the new things, and gave me a lot of knowledge about what's going on in today's compliance space. And I took that information and added it, and then I started applying. The next thing I would tell somebody, listen, man, you got to apply to as many jobs as possible. I think at some point I was applying or was getting applied. I was applying almost 30, 40, sometimes like 20 to 30 jobs a day. And I was applying so much in the DMV area that we applied to probably almost all the jobs in the DMV area for what I do. And then also too, just don't apply for what you qualify for, what you know you're going to qualify for. I applied for different positions. I took a chance. I applied for project managers. I applied for virtual CISOs. I applied for different things where I align. So I applied for so many different roles, and that's what you got to do. And then when I would say, and after a while, when you apply in one area, then start applying to another area. Do 20, 30 jobs in another area. 20, 30 jobs in another, but you got to keep it going no matter what. The next thing I would start doing is start practicing your interview skills. Practicing your interview skills, because what's going to happen, you're going to start getting interviews. For me, for example, I've been so out of interviews. I know the job, I know how to do the things, I know how to do all the information. But the thing is, sometimes it's not best at communicating that to different people. So just practice your interview skills. A lot of times I talk to people, hey, just put it on ChatGPT. Pretend ChatGPT is a recruiter. Have ChatGPT put your resume on there. Put the job you're trying to interview for. Put in the ChatGPT. Say, hey, pretend that you're doing an interview. And ask me one question at a time, and let me replay it in audio and grade it. That's another way I would tell you. Practice your interviewing skills. And then no matter what, when you're doing these interviews, make sure you understand what the company is, what they're trying to do, who the CEO is. Make sure you understand more about the company and understand what the true mission of the company is to do. Because at the end of the day, you're working for somebody else. What is the mission? So you got to make sure you understand what the mission is, and just keep repeating the process. And again, invest in yourself.
That's good. Investing in yourself. I mean, I think that's something that we can take with us now going forward to the end of our lifetime, right? And but you said something, Chris, where you said that you applied to 20 to 30 jobs a day. I don't know how you did it. You must have had some type of automation tool that was helping you apply to all those jobs. But you said that you was applying to different jobs that you probably didn't even think that you would have been qualified for, right? But in addition to you applying to jobs, you also doubled down on your business, particularly RMF Academy. So tell me, why did you think that was the time for you to bet on yourself, even though the landscape of what you was going through was pretty rough?
Yeah, man. Oh, and shout out to Shade. She's like a robot. She was that automated tool that was applying to all these jobs. So again, shout out to Shade.
Y'all get Shade. Y'all need to get a Shade 2.0, huh?
Yeah. hey, if you ever need some services, have Shade help you out, man. So, but what I will say is, throughout that time, I've always been working on Tech Woke. I almost always been working on RMF Academy. To be honest with you, since I was let go, I had a little imposter syndrome. I'm like, okay, I've been let go. Can I really talk about risk management? Can I really talk about validation of controls? Can I really talk about what's going on? And people will still come and use the services. Even with Tech Woke, am I really qualified to interview people if I don't have a job? So I let a little imposter syndrome, but I talked to different people like Shade. I talked to my boy O right here. And we definitely talked about different situations of like, hey, Chris, you still qualified, man. Like you still, just because you would let go, is that your real identity? Does getting let go take away 6 years of hard work you put in? It doesn't really it doesn't take away any of the things that you did at the end of the day. So I just doubled down on it. At first, I was just, at the beginning of RMF Academy, I couldn't really take it seriously. I didn't have different things for RMF Academy. I only do it probably once every 3 months, once every 2 months. But what I started doing is just double down on LinkedIn content. Got an eMASS emulator on RMF Academy so it can help people get lab experience. I made sure I invested in my education, understanding these concepts better. And then also whatever I made for the business, I help enhance the business. But yeah, throughout that time, I would definitely say if you have any projects or any passions, if you've been let go, just make sure you focus on that, grow that. And if it keeps growing, that's where the world aligns with you. That's what God wants you to do. And then throughout that time, I know how to balance a business. So when I go work for a company, and when I start my company, I'm going to be working my 9 to 5, right? I'm going to give it all to that company. But I got it in a way now, when I start my 5 to 9 after the work is done, it's all automated. I have processes in place. I can grow TechWoke to where it needs to go, and help the people the best way I can. So that's what I would say. That's why I doubled down. I'm glad it worked.
That's good, man. So, Chris, you have so much experience when it comes to being an ISSO, right? And it's one of the reasons why you was able to start TechWoke, you was able to start RMF Academy, and you have seen success from doing these things. But when you started to do all of these interviews, these 20 to 30 interviews that you was doing, you was realizing that you still had to polish up on your craft, right? But you also realized that a lot of us are not actually entirely trained when it comes to GRC, RMF, and even ISSO roles. So what would you share with us in regards to what you learned from those interviews and the gaps that you've seen when it comes to being trained in these particular areas?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's a very good question. Working in as an ISSO, working in RMF, when I started doing interviews, I was like, okay, well, this is how they asked me, how do you validate a control, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna say, oh, you look at the control, you review it, you go to the engineers to see if it's compliant. If it's not, then you mark it either ongoing, compliant, or just create a poem and just track it. You see how I just answered that question? That's not answering the question. Like, for example, what you would do in an interview now, how do you validate a control? You will go into the system on eMASS. You will click on controls. You will review the AC control, right? I will review what the control implementation guidance say. Then I will go to the CCI definition to see what the control is asking for. After I review and see what the control is asking for, then I will actually go check for evidence to see if we can mark it compliant. If there's no evidence on that control, then I will go to the engineer. I will tell him what's going on, what control needs to be implemented based on the NIST 853 controls. If he has a fix or he has some proof that he's fixed this, I would take that evidence, add it to eMASS, mark it compliant, and let the stakeholders know. And then vice versa, if it was non-compliant, I would get the remediation actions from that person. Make sure I update the risk register. Make sure I update the plan of action and milestones. Make sure I let the team know what that poem that needs to be completed number is, and make sure that you track it to completion. You see the difference, oh? You see how at the beginning I just gave an answer. Yeah. And then the second one is actually sounding like a compliance professional. So this is what they're looking for. They want to see you understand what is CMMC. Like, let me just give you one more example. Like CMMC, cyber, I forgot what it is. Okay, CMMC is cybersecurity maturity model, right? So that's what it is. So even with CMMC, they're going to ask you, what is CMMC? CMMC is based on the NIST 800-170 controls.
Right.
Those controls are based on NIST 853 with CUI information, right? So if you, and then after that, you can say the point of CMMC is to get a certification and make sure that you're implementing those controls to make sure that a system is properly managing their CUI. Then that's a better answer. Oh, so you see what I'm saying? So when you're when you're even working in the compliance space, the space is getting to a point where it's no more check boxes. Oh, it's more you actually can get down and dirty. Hey, you actually know what this is. And a lot of these jobs, I'll tell you, it's slowly transitioning to, hey, you got to actually become an engineer. You still got to know the basics, but you got to become more of an engineer now, and you got to be willing to get in there. Stop being a person that point and say you need to fix this. You got to make sure that you're known that you can fix this and you're capable to understand these concepts.
That's good. And we're definitely going to talk about why, having those skill sets of being an engineer along with being a compliance professional is definitely very beneficial. But I want to definitely, piggyback more on what you said, right? Because a lot of people some people can't talk a good game. And I'm talking about during interviews, right? And then some people actually do end up improving and getting better in interviews. But we all know at the end of the day, it's about, can you do the dirty work, as you said? So we have a lot of professionals who have a clearance, who have a security plus, and they've been working in IT for, let's just say, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? But then they struggle using eMASS, they struggle writing poems, they struggle validating controls. Chris, why do you think that gap is so common in experienced professionals?
The main thing is, and I'm going to just give you a perspective for myself. When I first started working in the risk management framework space, I was just thrown into the position. I'm not going to lie to you. I did have great.
I was just saying, same here.
Yeah, I was just thrown into the position, and you know how it is. So when you're thrown into the position, you just like, okay, I just got to just do eMASS. Like, what is eMASS? Hey, bro, you gotta test the control. What is testing the control? Hey, you gotta break an inheritance or add an inheritance. What is an inheritance? A lot of ISSOs and professionals that get into risk management framework, they're thrown into it. I've heard it countless times. And what needs to happen is proper training. But even if you get training in the government, sometimes the government has training. Sometimes it's just not good. It gives you the baseline information. It's not going to prepare you for different scenarios. And then times like you're going to be talking to different stakeholders. How do you communicate to the stakeholders? How do you communicate to an engineer? Talking to engineers, sometimes I love them, but it's hard to communicate to them. How do you get a STIG? How do you make sure they're actually implementing STIGs? How are you knowing they're getting away from you? You got to make sure you're doing your job properly. And that's kind of what you need to do for risk management.
That's good, man. So let's talk more about helping IT cybersecurity professionals, right? So let's talk about you building your eMASS lab. What problem were you trying to solve when you built your eMASS lab? And then also, do you believe that hands-on experience when it comes to your lab can help IT cybersecurity professionals for those ISSO roles?
Yeah. So when it comes to building these labs, I've done RMF training in the past. I bought courses. I've done that. For me, when I built the app, I first off I started off the labs of basically what is an ISSO. A lot of people don't even know. So when I was building my ISSO labs, the first thing I want to break down is in the beginning. It gives you a lot of work in the beginning. What is an ISSO? How did we come apart? Why do we have a job? The next thing in the course, we break down what the 7 steps of RMF are. Like, what are the 7 steps? And throughout the time I've been teaching the course, a lot of times people always ask me like they never get what the 7 steps of RMF is. So during my labs, you're going to understand what the 7 steps of RMF is. What I mean by that is the first step, you're going to prepare a system, right? So when you're preparing a system, you're getting the stakeholders, you're putting it together, and you're inputting that into a system. You're going into eMASS, you're actually putting all the stakeholders in, you're putting in the categorization, you're putting in the different things that need to be in the system. So you're going to knock out first 3 steps of RMF right there, which is prepare, right? You got categorization, right? Which is categorizing the system based on FIPS 199. And then the last step you're going to do is selecting the controls. So off the break, the first day of the class, you're actually inputting those things. You're actually checking the FIPS 199. You're actually inputting the categorization. You're going to actually talk about implementing controls, and you're going to get scenarios on how to implement controls. What is implementation? A lot of times when I do interviews, they always ask me about implementation. What is implementation? Implementation is when you're making sure that the controls based on NIST 853 are actually working. Like a lot of, like for example, an SSP, right? A SSP says some control might say you got to make sure that a document is being reviewed annually. To be honest with you, some people might not be reviewing annually. They might look at it one time and just put something there. Are we actually doing it?
Yeah.
And you know that, working in the field.
Trust me, I know. I was thinking about what you just said. I mean, because we all have kind of just like, how they used to say, you kick the can down the road. You wait until it's a time for you to turn in your ATO package before you actually are doing those audits, right? So you're scrambling to do certain things, and then that creates more of an issue because you have all this work that you need to take care of. You need to make sure that you have your baseline for your stays, like you tested all the controls. Do you have the documentation in order to support some of the CCIs that need to become compliant? So yeah, that's why automation, man, is definitely something that's going to be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, and then too, like in the labs, how I built the labs too, it's like, okay, you do all those first three, then you're going to actually assess the control. You're going to actually look at what a risk register is. A lot of people don't know what a risk register is. A lot of times they in eMASS, people think POAMs are the same thing. So the POAMs have a risk register, but the milestones in risk register are separate things, So we go through actually assessing the controls. We go through actually creating documentation, which is extremely hard to do if you've never done it before. After that, we go to the last steps of the ITL process, which is authorization and continuous monitoring. During the lab, we actually talk about how to actually check to see if we're actually doing continuous monitoring. What do you need to prepare to send that up? Throughout that course and throughout that lab that I created, you can either, just if you already have eMASS, you already use eMASS, you can just check out eMASS, right? You can just review eMASS. Like, okay, this is eMASS, right? I can just play around with it. Or you can go through the whole course and get all that information. That took me almost 6 years to do, and you go start an ISSO job, you'll understand the job when you first start. Would you rather go start a job when they don't teach you nothing and you got to learn from the back? And it's okay, you can go that route. I went that route. I did get training, but it wasn't the best training for me. But you can go that route, or you can go through a situation where you're getting live. You can speak to all that. It's a difference where you go on ChatGPT and be like, okay, how do you test the control? Okay, when they start asking you real questions, you can't really talk to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good. So you talked about training and that you didn't get the best training. So tell me about RMF Academy. Do you believe that RMF Academy can provide better training and it's a better benefit, and it can also be a substitution to traditional boot camps and certification courses?
Yeah, I think RMF Academy is a good place, especially if you are in the government space, if you have a security clearance, if you have a security plus, if you're already working in the GovTech space, like in any tech way, like for example, as an administrator or as anything that regarding tech, I think that's the best option, because a lot of people want to get into compliance, but they don't understand how to actually do the job. Yeah. So by the time you do the ISSO blueprint, by the time you take an eMASS lab, you'll actually know how to do the job. You'll know how to get a better understanding of it, and you can speak to it. So when you get to that position, a lot of that stuff won't be foreign. By the time you finish the course or class, you'll understand what the job is, how to do it, and some of the aspects of RMF Academy can be used for GRC because it's the same process. I don't care what nobody say. The 7 steps of RMF is the same thing when it comes to GRC. Maybe minus a couple steps because maybe they might not do an ATO, but it's the same thing, So that's kind of what's going on with RMF Academy, and I think it's a good thing for somebody to take it, and I would take it myself.
That's good. So for somebody who is looking at getting into a boot camp or is about to take a certification course, what are some of the things, and not to discourage them, but what are some of the things that you think they need to know before they pull the trigger and make that decision?
First, you got to understand what position that you're doing. I know in the past, you got into some situations when you did a boot camp, and maybe it didn't go the best way. And it's okay. We live and you learn.
Yeah, I know.
But in your case, you maybe didn't know, you maybe didn't understand. Like, first off, I would research who created the boot camp. What is their position? For a lot of times, I've been finding out for my own. A lot of people that create these boot camps that charge all this money, they don't even work in the field. They don't touch the field. They just see it as an opportunity to make money. And sometimes they put people in position.
That's true. That's true. And my boot camp was similar to that, right? The guy that was basically funding or hosting the boot camp wasn't even the person that was teaching the class. So I had no idea if they were even in the field, right? I think they saw an opportunity that a lot of people are now migrating to tech. So let me do this RMF course, get somebody, pay them to teach the course. And then some of the things that they said they was going to offer, they started to backtrack on it. They did a lot of backpedaling. And that was tough because I had to have a tough conversation with the person who was hosting the boot camp, and that didn't go well. But I will say it did help me. It taught me a lesson that, as you said, you have to do your own independent research on these boot camps. It's not to say that boot camps are bad, but you have to see, is the juice worth the squeeze? And that's really what it comes down to, right? So, Chris, I want to talk about RMF, right? Because RMF is changing, correct? So there's a lot of new expectation when it comes to tools, technologies, and when it comes to compliance challenges. So can you kind of let the audience know, like, what are some of the things that IT professionals should be expecting as RMF is changing?
So in the RMF space, I can kind of speak to it in the federal government space. There's a lot of things that are changing. More recently, CMMC, the level 2 certification, the DOW announced that right now they're not going to go forward with it right now. It's pending 60 days. And we don't know if it's going to come back or not. So CMMC was a big thing, but I would still keep aware and be familiar with CMMC, just so you can understand what's going on in that space. Another thing that's popping up now, quantum computing. Our president of the United States made announcements from the White House that they're going to start pouring into quantum computing. Quantum computing is good, but it's unsecure. So for a lot of RMF professionals, you can have an opportunity making sure that those quantum systems are actually secure with compliance. So that's another big thing that's out there. Cloud engineering, gov cloud compliance. Understanding the gov compliance, the cloud compliance space is another thing that you need to understand, because that can help get you a job too. A lot of interviews I do, they always question about that. How do you secure a system? What is the process? A kickoff meeting, things like that. That can help you get a job too. Another thing, shout out to AJ on, is GRC engineering. A lot of times they want to automate the RMF and GRC role, which can help out a lot, because sometimes manually doing this can make you go insane. GRC engineer is another big thing in the space. But for anybody that's trying to get into the tech space, stay on top of what's going on, because again, a resume that was good 5 years ago is different than a resume that's good now. You know what I'm saying? So if you got to go off of what you're seeing to better adapt. Even if it's AI, using that, infrastructures, you just got to make sure you adapt to different things.
That's good, man. So I know AI is becoming part of government systems and national security, right? So as RMF professionals such as me and you, how can we better secure, govern, and monitor AI?
Yeah, the main thing I would tell you, there's no set framework when it comes to securing AI. And just to be honest with you, we have a lot of government systems that's coming in, like Grok, ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all these companies coming in. And to be honest with you, it's a haywire to make sure that it is compliant, because it's such a big system. It has a lot of open spots. So we're still figuring that out. But what I will tell you, don't be afraid of AI. You know the reason why I say don't be afraid of AI? Because it has a lot of risks. And if you have a lot of risks, that means we're going to have more of a job. So just hey, if there's a lot of risk, if there's nothing, things that need to be secure, I know I'm in compliance, because you got to understand what a lot of these companies that are coming from Silicon Valley that's trying to get in the government space, they don't know nothing about RMF. They don't know nothing about this. They'll hire you just to teach them how to do RMF. They'll hire you
Right.
to teach them how to be compliant in the government space. So
Right.
that's what
Right.
you have to do, and that's how you get secure in this space, and that's what you do to maintain.
That's so good, right? And also, so like let's talk about quantum computing, right? Because quantum computing day by day is contributing more to the cybersecurity conversation. So, what risks does quantum computing pose when it comes to federal security, federal systems, when it comes to encryption, and also when it comes to compliance?
Yeah, when it comes to quantum computing, there's many risks when it comes to quantum computing. I can't even name all of them. Encryption is an issue. Injecting things into quantum computing. There's a lot of things that go into quantum computing. It's new. The reason why they're focusing heavy on quantum computing, because we're trying to get to AGI with OpenAI and all these companies. The software is good, but the hardware needs to be pushed out a little bit quicker. And with quantum computers, they can do that. But the thing is, if you're implementing that in the government space, again, we're supporting the warfighter. We're certain mission critical things. We got to make sure that it's secure. But the main thing is a lot of vulnerabilities when it comes to quantum. You can talk about it, but I would just tell you, just make sure you study up and just know that it's coming.
That's good. So when you talk about war fighters, right? When it comes to GRC, RMF, and ISSO professionals, right? We also got to be war fighters when it comes to all of these things that are coming down the pipeline. So when it comes to AI, when it comes to quantum computing, cloud systems, zero trust, automation, how can we be prepared for all of these things that are now coming into the fold?
The first thing I would do is just start following people. Go on LinkedIn, follow the top RMF, GRC professionals, follow me. Another thing that I do is I check out this thing called Fed Scoop, Cyber Scoop. They're
Mm.
telling me about everything that's coming. Check the White House, check the news. There's a lot of things coming out with the White House about what's going on, especially quantum computing, AI, and there could be some opportunities, even if they win money or getting opportunities in that. So what I will say is just, there's so many resources. Even you can just go on ChatGPT and tell it to do deep research and just find things that's going on. There's so many ways to find the information, but the main way, and I would just tell people, just follow like-minded people. They're going to tell you, because I know everything that happens in the GRC space.
Okay, that's good. So, RMF, we know where it is right now, but let's talk about more of the future of RMF and what the expectations are when it comes to ISO professionals, right? Because you mentioned something earlier that you believe that, GRC, RMF, and ISO professionals need to start learning engineer or basically otherwise become more technical, right? So what are some of the skills that they should have? Because you have automation, learning cloud systems, right? Learning cloud architecture, dealing with automation. All of these things are coming into the play, or all of these things that we are aware of, but we don't necessarily have the experience in. So out of the ones that I mentioned, what is one that you believe that cloud professionals who only know compliance also need to adopt as a skill set?
So the main thing I would tell people is most federal systems are going to the cloud. So cloud compliance is a big thing. What I would tell most people is first understand what vendor you want to check out. Like, say if it's Amazon or Azure, focus on one and try to learn it as much as possible. There's some people that know multi cloud, but I would suggest just find one, focus on it as much as possible. Understand where their backup system is, what zones they are. Understand like some basic information like cloud native. Understand that. Make sure you get some cloud certs, and that's what I'm working on for my future for myself, getting some cloud certs, and then slowly start doing labs with GRC engineering, labbing it up, because you're going to have to know how to do it. A lot of jobs want you to do it. So you're going to make sure you're labbing. Make sure you find you a mentor that can kind of guide you where you need to go. AJ Long in the GRC Engineering Club definitely help out a lot of people. I'm actually joined it myself, and so I'm learning about a lot of this. But the future of GRC RMF is going to automation. So you got to make sure you understand what automation is and make sure you know about the basics of RMF. Like we just talked about, the 7 steps, validating controls, because all that's going to come back when you're starting to making sure the system compliant. And that's another big issue. A lot of you kind of have a head up if you go that route by knowing the basics, because a lot of the engineers don't understand why you need to understand the NIST or understand the 7 steps of RMF. So it's going to be a harder transition for them versus where they can train somebody that's up there to automatically start doing that stuff for the future. So that's where I will focus on. GRC engineering is the future, but definitely, always check out RMF Academy if you want to know the basics first to get to that level.
Thank you, Chris, man. You shared a lot of information, a lot of valuable free information, because some of the things that you have shared with us is normally stuff that people would have to pay for. And I just thank you, man, for just dropping the gems today as well, because I think there's a lot of people who may be watching this and they may be encouraged, and now they kind of have a path forward in regards to where they want to go when it comes to the IT journey. So, Chris, man, tell us about Tech World. You're now in New Mexico. What are some of the things that you plan to work on in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, so the first thing in New Mexico is I'm just trying to get an understanding of the land. For me, just going around New Mexico, there's not a lot of opportunities for people to network, talk about tech, talk about different things, or just find people that's like-minded. So once I get an understanding of the lay of the land and find some venues, one of the first things I'm going to do is just try to start up a group. Just start up a group so we can meet up every month, every 2 months, just so people can have a voice to talk about different things and have a good time to social and network. So that's the main thing I'm gonna focus with here. On Tech Woke, I'm just gonna crank out as many podcasts as much as possible. And I think, and also too, I'm gonna grow RMF Academy, keep growing, eventually start hiring on instructors so we can kind of really grow RMF Academy to the next level. To where it needs to go. And then in the future, I'm planning on doing a conference. Whenever that opportunity comes, I'm not going to say next year. When the stars align, when God wants me to do it, then I'm going to do a conference. And I think that's the main thing I want to focus on. That's the last big thing I'm going to do for this community in general. And definitely have O come there to host it, if he wants to.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, New Mexico is the home of the show Breaking Bad. So I believe Chris will be breaking tech when it comes to, Tech Woke and him being in New Mexico. So, man, Chris, man, I really appreciate, and I'm truly blessed by this conversation, brother. Where can people follow you? Where can they connect with you? And yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to follow me on YouTube. Check out Tech Woke. Go on LinkedIn, type in Chris Akpala. Tech Woke on TikTok. Tech Woke on Instagram. And then also to the audience, if you're trying to learn about risk management framework, you're trying to get some hands-on labs, you're trying to learn about risk management, just check out RMF Academy. If you just want to learn about eMASS, right now we're having a special. It's like 52% off. You can see the link in the description of this video. Check it out. Just get wet with the lab. If you want to learn more and more in depth, check out the ISSO Blueprint. We do a cohort every month at the end of the month. So make sure you check it out. And there's different options to to use it, payment plans, things like that. So make sure you check out RMF Academy.
Well, you heard it here first, the man behind Tech Woke. So thank you, Chris. And as you always say, y'all make sure to get 1% better each and every day.
Yeah, most definitely. And thank you, O. And remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and check out RMF Academy. Peace out, everybody. I'll see you on the next one.